and welcome to a Temple Films Limited in production with Stone Temple Films in conjunction with Temple O'Doom Films. Now, this little video clip was produced by Mr. Temple, written by Mr. Temple, edited by Mr. Temple, starring Mr. Temple, co-starring nobody, filmed by Mrs. Johnson, and support staff, chauffeur, caterer, prop master, and stuntman, Mr. Laughlin. And directed by none other than me. Now, today, we're going to be learning about fun things you can do with flags. Now, this flag looks very familiar probably, and you're thinking, I know that flag, and wait a second, getting a little message. Yes, apparently that's not what we're doing today. A little embarrassing, sorry about that. Apparently we're doing science today, not civics. So, what are we going to be doing today? Well, let's see. You're probably wondering, what could we possibly be doing? Any guesses out there? No, not that. No, not that topic. That's next year. That's 7th grade, thank goodness. Yes, that's right. It is ecosystems. Yes. All right. So ecosystems, we're going to be really kind of focusing on the producers, the consumers, and the decomposers. Now, that is all part of the food chain, and we're all part of the food chain. And I know what you're thinking, well, wait a second. A food chain, that sounds like it might be cyclical, like going around and around. And that's true. And I hear you cry, but I'm at the top of the food chain. Nothing gets past me. Anything below me, I consume, I eat. Well, most things, but not everything. Now, think about it. You might just say, the buck doesn't just stop with you. Otherwise, we're going to run into a big problem, as we'll see a little later. You might be the alpha male of your food chain, the big dog, the top honcho, the big honcho, whatever it is. And next thing you know, if you're taken out of your familiar civilized world and plopped into the middle of nowhere, you're going to find yourself in a lot of dire straits. You're not going to have the equipment you need. You're not going to have the electricity that we've all come to kind of depend on and gotten kind of lazy with. In a way, we are at the top of the food chain as a whole group, but individually, just on our own, with no help for a very long time, we could get ourselves in kind of a little bit of a mess there. Now, of course, when it comes to, let's say, producers, what things in nature actually produce anything? Well, before anything can actually be produced, it needs some sort of energy. And of course, all life on Earth gets its energy from that big ball of gas out in space called the sun. It's our nearest star. And as you have solar radiation come down through the EM wavelengths, electromagnetic waves come down, that sunlight hits our atmosphere. Some of it gets scattered on the water particles up in the sky, giving us that blue sky up there. And the rest of the sunlight comes down. After traveling millions and millions of miles, it hits a small little leaf, let's say on a bush. All right, so now you have the sunlight going into that leaf, and that's going to start kind of the process of photosynthesis. And the end result of photosynthesis is going to provide life for all animals on Earth, including humans. And remember, in a plant, you've got a couple important things for photosynthesis to take place real quick. Remember, you have the roots of a plant, That's basically to full purpose to hold it in place, kind of anchor it in the ground so it doesn't just blow away like a tumbleweed. And it also provides a way for water and nutrients to travel up through the roots, through the stem to the leaf, and it's going to mix with two things that the plant's going to get also. It's going to get water from the atmosphere, and it's going to draw in carbon dioxide. Once those three things mix, it's going to produce food for the plant, the sugars called glucose, and it's going to provide a byproduct called oxygen. And most of that oxygen is going to get pushed back out the atmosphere, allowing us to breathe. So we depend on plants to breathe. Plants depend on us through our, as we exhale carbon dioxide. Now, of course, that food called glucose is going to help that plant produce more leaves, fruits, and things like that, and seeds for further generations. Now, let's say you have a little plant. Now, if I could have my prop master bring just a blue one. Let's say you have a little, thank you very much, you have a little bunny. He's hopping around, rabbit, 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 and he's eating a little bit of plant there, right? He's sitting there somehow, and he is eating his plant, num, 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 and that plant is providing nutrients for the rabbit, and that rabbit is a consumer of that plant. Now, he might be eating berries, he might be eating leaves, cloves, whatever it is, and he is enjoying it. Now, you also are a consumer of a lot of different things here in nature. And a lot of times, when you go to a store, sometimes you almost have to put, food together in order to make, your dinner. Sometimes it's not all assembled, it's kind of scattered throughout the store and you have to get all the ingredients. So you might say, hey, you know what? I eat a lot of, let's say, you eat a lot of salads, whether it's iceberg lettuce, kale, spinach, whatever. Maybe eat lots of different vegetables, cucumbers, tomatoes, turnips, whatever. And then again, maybe you're like a lot of Americans, you eat as much as you can, as when it comes to especially hot wings. You might say, I could eat 20 of those as hot as you can possibly get. Maybe you like grilled cheese. All that comes from, the bread comes from wheat, the cheese comes from dairy. Perhaps you like to eat hamburgers, pizzas. We all like to consume things in order to get energy for ourselves. That's the whole reason why we have to eat. We don't eat, we have no energy. If we have no energy, we cannot do anything. We have no ability to go out and do the things we like to do. We just get very lethargic, and eventually you would pass away if you don't have enough food. Now, same with this little bunny. As he's eating, he's enjoying his little dinner, which kind of comes to the next step of underneath the umbrella of consumers, being, since he only eats vegetables, he is considered a herbivore. Some people like to be vegetarian or vegan, and that's perfectly fine. Like I said, some people like to eat meat, some people don't, whatever your preference is. And all of a sudden, one day, thank you very much, you're going to have, with this little bunny rabbit, a predator come by. He's the prey, he's the predator. Try not to be too afraid. This gets a little intense here in a second. As he comes by, fee, fi, fo, fum. I guess that's not really a bear, that's more of a giant, but you get my drift. And he comes and eats the rabbit. All right, so the rabbit is now out of the picture. He has eaten it, num, 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 and he is now a consumer of yet another consumer, being the rabbit. And he is able to absorb the proteins and everything else. Now, unfortunately, here on Earth, everything dies. And Even a cute little bear like this will end up dying one day because now he's choking on the lucky rabbit's foot, which isn't so lucky for him, and he ends up dying. And what's going to happen is the next step. You're going to have other consumers. They could be scavengers, and they're going to tear apart the dead carcass, unfortunately. But that's going to help break this carcass down. You're going to have bacteria that are going to be breaking that down. And eventually, it all goes back into the earth. And next thing you know, he's gone. Now, do keep in mind, no stuffed animals were hurt in the making of this. It's all right? It's all right. Bunny, Mr. Bunny, are you okay? And suspiciously enough, the bunny is going to sound very much like Mrs. Johnson.
I'm good.
Oh, you see? All right, we're all good. So, no worries there. Everybody's happy. All right. Bringing up the PowerPoint real quick. Just kind of looking at what it was. Remember, an organism's energy role is determined by how it obtains energy and how it interacts with other organisms. Each of the organisms in an ecosystem fills the energy role of producer, consumer, or decomposer, as we're saying. Producers produce the food. Trees, bushes, all those things are going to provide food for us. Remember, all through photosynthesis, that's going to help provide oxygen to everybody. And that is one of the things that we always have to protect, our environment. We have to protect the forests, we have to protect the oceans, because a lot of seaweed out there produces oxygen for everybody around the world. And if anything gets interrupted, the whole thing kind of comes crashing down. All right, so anything that can make its own food is a producer, and those are plants. Those are the only things that can produce its own food. We cannot just produce an apple just because we want it to and have it grow out of the back of our hand. That'd be really weird if you could, and you'd probably want to go see a doctor if that's happening. So, remember, certain bacteria produce its own food using the energy and gas, hydrogen sulfide, that is found in the environment. But on the most part, we depend on vegetable or plants that produce vegetables and fruits in order for us to be able to have a balanced diet. Once again, consumers, they're going to be eating whatever the producers are making. You're going to have animals that only eat plants, those are the herbivores, like caterpillars, deer, bunny rabbits, right? Maybe you only eat animals and you're a carnivore. I'm sure your parents have said, boy, you're definitely a carnivore because all you do is eat all these different types of meats, steaks, and everything else. Maybe you're at a buffet and you have 4 plates full of steak and chicken and shrimp and all these other types of meats, and somehow a piece of broccoli gets on there and you're like, how'd that happen? And you just end up just eating a lot of meat. But remember, eat your vegetables too. Lions and spiders are examples of carnivores. It's really the lioness who goes out and hunts, takes down the prey, brings it back for the lion, the male lion. He eats first, then the female lions, and then the cubs finally. That helps secure the adults to be able to have future generations. Now, if you eat everything, then you're an omnivore. You eat vegetables, you eat meat, whatever is out there you like to have. Perhaps you like to have a pizza with fungus and mold on it. That's basically a mushroom and cheese pizza, right? Which I actually like very much. Let's see, crows, bears, and most humans are omnivores. I definitely fall into that. Now remember, scavengers, they basically feed off the bodies of dead animals. That includes catfish, guys, so if you like catfish, you're eating a scavenger, all right? And including vultures. You see those always eating the road pizza out there, you know, the roadkill, and people always, not people, but they really seem to really get into their eating habits there. Now, of course, we talked briefly about decomposers. So here, this is going to take the raw material of life that would stay locked up in waste in the bodies of dead organisms. Luckily, there are organisms in the ecosystem that prevent this problem, and decomposers break down waste in dead organisms and return them back into the raw materials of the ecosystem, bringing those nutrients back into the soils so that nutrients can go back into the plants, produce more food for the consumers like us to eat. It's very important that that cycle continues on and on and on. That way, every year, you know, you can go to the store and get a fresh batch of apples, cucumbers, carrots, whatever types of vegetables you like to eat. So really, decomposers are nature's recyclers. While obtaining energy for their own needs, they also return those simple molecules back into the environment. Mushrooms and bacteria are really the most common decomposers, as we were talking about. Now, you can definitely find the cycle life all around us. Things are always growing, especially now in the spring. You're seeing the leaves from last season decomposing out in the woods. Like I said, maybe a poor animal got hit by a car. You can see it's decomposing on the side of the road. You can probably maybe even open your refrigerator and find a dish in the back that's covered, and you take it off. You got mold all over it, starting to decompose back there, it starts to smell. That's all part of the rotting process, which of course at that point you want to throw away, and maybe even the whole container, depending what kind of container it is. Don't throw out your grandma's favorite dish, you know, and maybe if it's an old Tupperware or something that's just kind of, you know, it's not going to be clean, get rid of that. All right, so far, are there any questions? No? Okay, good. So, remember, this PowerPoint is a worksheet that you'll need to complete with it. And other than that, remember to stay with us constantly each day. Submit your information into the folders or your work, and make sure you're joining Quizlet. Mine is jtemple123, and the other teachers will probably inform you guys of their Quizlet accounts when they do their videos. So I miss you guys. It's been kind of a weird couple weeks, and I know the next couple weeks we'll be getting in touch with you guys. So until then, top top.